Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. This card has a lot going on and I'd like to use it to show you 3 fun stencil techniques. For this card I prepared a couple of die cut pieces. I cut 2 stitched rectangles from thick white paper using the Mini Slimline Essentials bundle die set by Pinkfresh Studio, and I also cut 4 of these frames. These are the fancy oval frame die, also by Pinkfresh Studio. I'm using a folded over piece of purple tape to adhere my 2 rectangles together, and I'm putting them in my MISTI. I will use the Sweet Blooms cling stamp to stamp a subtle background onto both of these panels. I'm stamping it all in Distress Oxide Pumice stone ink. This stamp isn't large enough to cover the entire piece, so I'm stamping it twice. For a different project, I stamped and heat embossed the small butterflies by Pinkfresh Studio on some acetate, and I used the coordinating die to cut them out. And that left me with a negative space, so I'm using that as a stencil today. I'm using the Gina Glitz glitter gel in the gold finish and a Ranger foam blending tool to apply it through the stencil. Now you saw me mix it up with a palette knife before I used it. That's because the glitter sometimes settles at the bottom, so it's really useful to mix it up before you use it. I'm stenciling on 3 of the butterflies today, and to make sure I don't get any excess glitter gel onto my project, I'm just taping off any neighboring butterflies that I don't want to stencil. And as you can see, I'm not using a lot of this glitter gel. I only pick up a small amount with my blending foam. These butterflies also come with a matching layering stencil set. And I'll be stenciling them onto an A2 sized piece of Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock. This is really cheap cardstock, but perfect for ink blending. I'm using an A2 sized panel because these stencils have little notches in each corner that make it really easy to line up with your paper. And they're perfectly A2 sized. That's also why I'm stenciling first and stamping later. This makes it really easy to line each layer up. I'm using 4 different colors of Pinkfresh Studio dye ink. And this first one is one of my favorites. It's Coral Reef. It's this really nice subtle pink. To make stenciling easier, I always put a folded over piece of purple tape on the back of my cardstock to adhere it to my work surface. That keeps it in place nicely. I then also use some purple tape to adhere my stencils down as well. And you can pretty much use this purple tape over and over again, so I'm using the same 2 pieces for each layer. I used sweet mustard ink for the second layer of the stencil set, and now I'm using some Ocean Breeze. Obviously, I sped up all of this footage because I don't want to waste your time, but it took me an hour and a half to make this card, start to finish. When I'm watching YouTube videos from other creators, I always wonder how long they really spent on it, so I figured I'd tell you guys. I'm doing this final layer in the Tidal Pond ink, another gorgeous color. Now I'm putting that in my MISTI and lining up the stamp set with my images. And I'm using that same Tidal Pond ink to stamp the image. I got a pretty good impression from the first time stamping it but I wanted to darken up the line color a little bit. I die cut that with the coordinating die, and now I'm moving on to assembling the card. I'm using Barely Art Precision Craft Glue to stack all of these fancy oval frame dies together. I really like stacking up die cuts. I think it's really relaxing and it gives such a nice dimension to your project. Now I'm just arranging all the pieces together to see if I like everything and to see how much space I had left for a sentiment. I decided to use the Hello die from the Classic Words die set, also by Pinkfresh Studio, and I cut that 4 times out of a gray cardstock and stacked all of those together. Now I thought my design could use just a little bit more color, so I'm using that same Coral Reef ink to blend some color onto the edges of the largest rectangle die cut. To assemble everything, I want to add some dimension, so I'm using foam tape. I used 1 layer of foam tape on the first layer of the card, but for the second layer, I'm stacking up 2 layers of foam tape. Because we have that background that continues over the 2 layers, I really wanted to set them apart with extra dimension. I'm using the Barely Art Glue again to adhere my oval frame and my sentiment. And then it's time to adhere the butterflies. I'm folding up the wings and then just putting glue on the body of the butterflies, which adds some interest and extra dimension to the card. To finish up this card, I am using the Gold Metallic Pearls by Pinkfresh Studio and arranging them with my jewel picker. Once I'm happy with the placement, I adhere them down with some more of that Barely Art Glue. In my last video, I made a simple matching envelope and I thought that would be fun to do again today. I'm just following the instructions on my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board to make this mini slimline envelope. Now, the bottom and the top flap are too large when you fold it with the punch board, so I'm just aligning the score line with the 7 cm mark in my trimmer and trimming that down. And the third fun way to use your stencils is to just add some detail to your matching envelope. I'm just inking up 1 butterfly, but I'm using all the same inks I used before. I also made this envelope with the Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock. I'm also stamping the butterfly again, just inking up that 1 butterfly, which is really easy because I'm using the ink cubes. And then I'm just assembling the envelope with some Barely Art Glue. And that's it. I really like how this card turned out. There's a lot going on, a lot of shimmer, a lot of shine, a lot of dimension. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You can find the full list of supplies in the description. I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.